The moon was cold, silent, and lifeless. It orbited a massive gas giant that glowed faintly in shades of blue and green, casting an eerie light over the barren landscape. The air, if it could even be called that, was thin and unbreathable, composed mostly of gases toxic to most living creatures. But for the Krillians, this place was home. Their sleek silver ships hovered above the surface, scanning the ground with advanced sensors. They were explorers, scientists, and seekers of knowledge. And on this day, they had found something extraordinary. Deep, beneath layers of ice buried for centuries or perhaps even millennia, lay the remains of an ancient spacecraft. Its design was unfamiliar, unlike anything the Krillians had encountered before. The ship's surface was battered and scarred, evidence of its long journey through space. Yet, despite its age, it still held traces of energy within its core. Curious and cautious, the Krillians began to dig. It took hours, or what passed for hours in their timekeeping system, to uncover the vessel fully. When they finally breached its hull, they discovered something even more astonishing. Inside, there was a single cryogenic pod. The pod was intact, humming softly with power. Within it floated a human male, his body preserved in suspended animation. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and his chest rose and fell slowly, as if he were merely sleeping. The lead scientist, Zilra, stepped forward. She was tall and slender, with shimmering scales that shifted colors depending on the light. Her large, almond-shaped eyes studied the pod intently. "This is remarkable," she said, her voice calm but tinged with excitement. "A human. From Earth." "Earth?" Varn, her assistant, asked. He was younger, less experienced, and his curiosity often got the better of him. "Isn't that the planet we've only heard about in ancient records? The one that disappeared?" Zilra nodded. "Yes, according to our archives, Earth was once a thriving world, home to a species known for its ingenuity and ambition. But something happened. Whether war, environmental collapse, or some other catastrophe, we don't know. All we know is that Earth vanished from the galactic stage centuries ago." Varn tilted his head, examining the man in the pod. "So, how did he end up here, and why is he still alive?" "That's what we're going to find out," Zilra replied. She turned to the rest of the team. "Prepare the lab. We need to analyze his condition carefully. If he's been in cryo-sleep this entire time, reviving him will require precision. Any mistake could kill him, or worse." The team worked quickly, transporting the pod to their research facility. Once there, they connected it to their own systems, stabilizing its power supply and monitoring the man's vital signs. They ran tests studying his DNA, brain activity, and physical condition. What they found both fascinated and alarmed them. "He's not like other humans," Zilra explained during a meeting with her team. "His genetic structure has been altered, enhanced. Look at these markers. They indicate heightened strength, speed, and cognitive abilities. Whoever he is, he wasn't just an ordinary citizen of Earth. He was modified." "Do you think it was intentional?" Varn asked. "Almost certainly," Zilra said. "But by whom, and for what purpose?" The questions lingered in the air unanswered. As the days passed, the team debated whether they should attempt to revive the man. Some argued that doing so would be too risky. He might wake up disoriented, aggressive, or even hostile. Others believed it was their duty as scientists to learn everything they could about him and his origins. In the end, curiosity won out. With great care, they initiated the revival process. The pod systems began to warm up, gradually raising the man's body temperature. His heart rate increased, and his breathing grew stronger. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, his eyes fluttered open. At first, the man seemed confused. He blinked several times, taking in his surroundings. The room was bright, filled with strange machinery and unfamiliar faces. The Krillians watched him closely, unsure of how he would react. To their surprise, he remained calm, his gaze steady and alert. Zilra approached him cautiously, holding up a small device that emitted a soft glow. It was a translator, designed to interpret and convert languages in real time. Can you understand me? She asked, her voice gentle. The man frowned slightly, then nodded. Yes, he said, his voice hoarse but clear. Who are you? Where am I? My name is Zilra, she replied. You are on a moon orbiting a distant planet. We found your ship buried in the ice. You've been in cryo-sleep for a very long time. The man's expression darkened. How long? We estimate several centuries, Zilra said. Your species, humans, are no longer active in the galaxy. Earth itself is gone. For a moment, the man said nothing. Then slowly he sat up, wincing as his muscles adjusted to movement after so many years of dormancy. My name is Daniel Carter, he said. I was part of a mission to explore new worlds, to find a future for humanity. Zilra exchanged a glance with Varn. We'll explain everything to you later, she said. For now, rest. You've been through a lot. But as Daniel swung his legs over the edge of the pod, testing his weight on the floor, the Krillians noticed something unsettling. When he accidentally brushed against a piece of equipment, it crumpled under his touch as though made of paper. His strength was far greater than they had anticipated. Varn leaned closer to Zilra and whispered, Uh-oh. He's too powerful. Zilra didn't respond immediately. Instead, she kept her eyes fixed on Daniel, who was now standing upright, surveying the room with sharp, calculating eyes. There was intelligence behind his gaze, a quiet confidence that suggested he was far more capable than he appeared. Whatever secrets he carried, Zilra realized they were bound to change everything, for better or for worse. Daniel Carter stood in the middle of the Krillian lab, his eyes scanning every detail. The room was filled with machines that hummed softly, glowing panels on the walls casting a pale light over everything. He felt out of place, like a stranger, dropped into a world he didn't understand. The beings around him, tall, scaled creatures with shimmering skin and wide, unblinking eyes, watched him carefully. They spoke to each other in low tones, their language a mix of clicks and melodic, sounds that Daniel couldn't decipher. Zilra, the lead scientist, stepped forward again, holding the small glowing orb she had used earlier. It hovered near her shoulder, projecting words in a voice that sounded mechanical but clear. We are trying to help you, she said through the translator. You have been asleep for a very long time. We need to learn more about your condition. Daniel nodded slowly, though his mind raced with questions. What happened to my ship and where exactly am I? You are on a moon far from Earth, Zilra replied. Your ship was buried under ice. We found it by chance while exploring this region. As for what happened to Earth, it is gone. Humans no longer exist in the galaxy as they once did. The words hit Daniel hard, but he forced himself to stay calm. He had always known the mission might fail, that humanity's future wasn't guaranteed. Still, hearing it confirmed was a blow. And you're telling me I'm the only one left? He asked. For now, yes, Zilra said. But we are still studying your ship. There may be more information inside. Daniel took a deep breath. All right. Tell me what you want to know. Over the next few days, the Krillians ran countless tests on Daniel. They scanned his body, monitored his brain activity, and even took samples of his blood. At first, Daniel cooperated willingly, eager to understand his situation. But as time went on, he began to notice things that made him uneasy. The way the Krillians whispered among themselves when they thought he wasn't listening. The way some of them flinched whenever he moved too quickly. He realized they were afraid of him, and maybe they had good reason to be. One evening, after another round of testing, Daniel sat alone in a small chamber the Krillians had set aside for him. It wasn't much, a cot, a table, and a chair, but it was better than the cryopod. He stared at the wall, replaying everything he'd learned so far. Earth was gone. Humanity was gone. And now he was here, surrounded by aliens who seemed both fascinated and terrified of him. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. The door slid open, revealing Nira, one of the younger Krillians. She was shorter than Zilra, with lighter scales that shimmered faintly in the dim light. Unlike the others, she didn't seem afraid of Daniel. In fact, she looked almost curious. "May I come in?" she asked, her voice hesitant but kind. Daniel gestured toward the chair. "Sure." Nira entered and sat down, clutching a small device in her hands. "I brought something for you," she said, holding it out. It was a tablet-like object, its screen glowing faintly. "This will teach you our written language, if you want to learn." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Why are you helping me?" Nira hesitated before answering. "Because I think we can learn from each other. You're human, and humans were once a great civilization. Maybe there's still hope for your people." Her words struck a chord with Daniel. For the first time since waking up, he felt a flicker of hope. "All right," he said. "Let's start with the basics." As the days turned into weeks, Daniel and Nira spent hours together. She taught him simple phrases in the Cryllian language, showing him how to form the clicking sounds and melodic tones. In return, he shared stories about Earth, about its history, its culture, and its achievements. Nira listened intently, her eyes wide with wonder. "You humans built all those things yourselves?" she asked one day, referring to Daniel's description of skyscrapers, airplanes, and computers. "Yeah," Daniel said with a smile. "We weren't perfect, but we got a lot done." Nira shook her head in amazement. "It's incredible. No wonder the Council fears you." "The Council?" Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Nira glanced around nervously, lowering her voice. "Some of the elders think reviving you was a mistake. They say humans are dangerous, too aggressive, too unpredictable. That's why Earth was quarantined centuries ago." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Quarantined? What does that mean?" "It means they cut off contact with your planet," Nira explained. "They monitored it from afar, waiting to see if humanity would destroy itself. When Earth disappeared, they assumed it had." Anger bubbled inside Daniel, but he kept it in check. "And now they're worried I'll cause trouble?" "They're not sure what to think," Nira admitted. "But they're watching you closely, testing your limits." Daniel clenched his fists, feeling the familiar surge of strength beneath his skin. He had suspected the Cryllians were hiding something, but this was worse than he imagined. "So what happens now?" he asked. "I don't know," Nira said honestly. "But I believe you deserve a chance. Not everyone agrees with the Council's methods." Her words gave Daniel a glimmer of hope. If Nira trusted him, maybe others could too. Still, he knew he couldn't rely solely on her support. He needed to find out more about the Cryllians and about himself. One night, unable to sleep, Daniel wandered through the facility. The halls were quiet, most of the Cryllians resting or working in other areas. He passed rows of equipment and storage rooms, his footsteps echoing softly. Then he came across a door marked with strange symbols. Something about it caught his attention. Curious, he pressed his hand against the panel beside it. To his surprise, the door slid open. Inside was a room filled with monitors and screens displaying data and images. Daniel stepped inside, his heart pounding. This was clearly restricted access. Information meant for the Cryllians' eyes only. He scanned the screens, piecing together fragments of text translated by the glowing orb he carried. What he discovered chilled him to the bone. The Cryllians weren't just scientists, they were enforcers. Their job was to maintain balance in the galaxy by suppressing civilizations deemed too dangerous. They had intervened on countless worlds, altering ecosystems, erasing populations, and rewriting histories. And then he saw it. A file labeled Earth. His hands trembled as he opened it. The documents revealed that Earth hadn't simply vanished. It had been erased. The Cryllians had deemed humanity a threat and decided to eliminate it entirely. Only a handful of colonies had survived, scattered across distant stars and hidden from view. Daniel's mind reeled. All this time, he had believed Earth's destruction was an accident, a result of humanity's own mistakes. But the truth was far darker. The Cryllians had wiped them out. His anger boiled over, but he forced himself to stay calm. He couldn't confront them. Not yet. First, he needed proof. Carefully, he copied the files onto a portable device he found nearby. Then, slipping back into the hallway, he returned to his room as quietly as he had left. The next morning, Neera arrived as usual, carrying her tablet. She noticed the tension in Daniel's expression immediately. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Know what happened to Earth," Daniel said bluntly. "And I know what your people did." Neera froze, her scales dulling slightly, a sign of distress. "How did you—" "I found the records last night," Daniel interrupted. "Don't lie to me, Neera. Your council destroyed my planet. They killed billions of people because they were scared." Tears welled up in Neera's large eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know all the details until now. But Daniel, not everyone agrees with what they did. Some of us believe there's another way." Daniel stared at her, searching for any sign of deception. Finally, he sighed. "Then help me expose them. Help me show the galaxy what they've done." Neera hesitated, torn between loyalty to her species and her growing bond with Daniel. But as she looked into his determined eyes, she knew what she had to do. "All right," she said softly, "I'll help you, but we have to be careful. If the council finds out—" "They won't," Daniel said firmly. "Not until it's too late." With Neera's assistance, Daniel began gathering evidence. They accessed restricted archives, recorded incriminating data, and mapped out key locations within the facility. Each step brought them closer to the truth and closer to danger. But Daniel refused to back down. He owed it to Earth, to humanity, to fight for justice. As the days passed, Daniel noticed subtle changes in himself. His reflexes were faster, his senses sharper. Even his emotions seemed heightened, as if the revival process had awakened something dormant within him. He didn't fully understand it, but he embraced it. Whatever power the Krillians had unlocked, he would use it to take them down. By the time they had enough evidence to act, Daniel felt ready. Ready to confront the Council, ready to reveal their crimes to the galaxy, and ready to reclaim humanity's place among the stars, even if it meant tearing the Krillians apart to do it. The days that followed were tense. Daniel and Neera worked quietly, moving through the Krillian facility like shadows. They avoided drawing attention to themselves, knowing that even the smallest mistake could ruin everything. Every piece of evidence they collected, data logs, recordings, files detailing Earth's erasure, was carefully stored on a small device hidden in Daniel's pocket. It was risky, but they had no other choice. Neera proved to be an invaluable ally. She knew the layout of the facility better than anyone, guiding Daniel through hidden passages and unused corridors. Her knowledge of the Krillian systems allowed them to bypass security measures without triggering alarms. But despite her help, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The Council was growing suspicious, and their patience was wearing thin. One evening, as they sat together in Daniel's chamber, Neera glanced at him nervously. "We need to move soon," she said. "The Council has called a meeting tomorrow. They're planning to discuss you." Daniel frowned. "What do they want with me?" "They're debating whether to keep you here or send you away," Neera replied. "Some think you're too dangerous to stay. Others believe studying you could give them more control over humans if your species ever returns." "Control?" Daniel's voice hardened. "They already tried controlling us once. Look where that got them." Neera didn't respond. She knew Daniel was right, but she also knew how powerful the Council was. Challenging them directly would be suicide. Still, there was no turning back now. Together, they had uncovered secrets that could change everything, if they could get the information out. "We'll act tonight," Daniel said firmly. "If the Council is meeting tomorrow, we can use that to our advantage. While they're distracted, we'll broadcast the evidence to every system within range." Neera nodded, though fear flickered in her eyes. "It won't be easy. The broadcasting station is heavily guarded. And if we're caught, we won't be," Daniel interrupted. "Trust me, Neera. We've come this far. We can't stop now." That night, the two of them moved cautiously through the facility. The halls were dimly lit, most of the Krillians asleep or occupied elsewhere. Daniel carried the device containing the evidence, his hand gripping it tightly. Nira led the way, her scales shimmering faintly in the low light. They reached the broadcasting station without incident, slipping inside just as a group of guards passed by outside. Inside, the room was filled with complex machinery, its panels glowing softly. Nira quickly went to work, connecting the device to the main console. Her fingers moved deftly over the controls, typing commands into the system. "This will take a few minutes," she whispered. "We need to make sure the signal reaches as many systems as possible." Daniel stood near the door, keeping watch. His senses were on high alert, every sound making him tense. He could feel the weight of what they were about to do pressing down on him. If they succeeded, the galaxy would know the truth about the Krillians and about humanity. If they failed... A sudden noise snapped him out of his thoughts. Footsteps echoed in the hallway, growing louder with each passing second. Daniel turned to Nira. "We've got company." Nira didn't look up, her focus entirely on the task at hand. "Almost done," she muttered. "Just a little longer." The footsteps stopped outside the door. A moment later, the panel beside it lit up, signaling someone trying to gain access. Daniel stepped forward, positioning himself between the door and Nira. His muscles tensed, ready for whatever came next. The door slid open, revealing two Krillian guards. Their weapons were drawn, their expressions grim. "Step away from the console," one of them ordered, his voice sharp. Daniel didn't move. Instead, he raised his hand slowly, showing he wasn't armed. "I don't want trouble," he said calmly, "but you need to hear this." Before the guards could respond, Nira spoke up. "It's done," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. She pressed a final button on the console, and the screens around the room lit up with images and text. Files detailing the Krillians' actions scrolled across the displays, undeniable proof of their crimes. The guards stared in shock, their weapons lowering slightly. Daniel seized the opportunity, stepping closer. "Now everyone will know the truth," he said. "About Earth. About what your council has done." One of the guards snapped out of his daze, raising his weapon again. "You don't understand what you've unleashed," he growled. "This will cause chaos." "Good," Daniel shot back. "Maybe chaos is exactly what you need." The standoff lasted only seconds before more guards arrived, surrounding them. Daniel braced himself, knowing they couldn't fight their way out. But then something unexpected happened. One of the guards lowered his weapon completely, shaking his head. "He's right," the guard said. "We've been wrong for too long." Others began to murmur in agreement, their loyalty to the council wavering. Nira stepped forward, addressing them directly. "This isn't about rebellion," she said. "It's about doing what's right. Humanity deserves a chance to rebuild, and so does our own society." For a moment the room was silent. Then slowly, the guard stepped aside, allowing Daniel and Nira to leave. Word of the broadcast spread quickly, reaching not only the facility but also nearby star systems. By morning, the entire galaxy was buzzing with news of the Krillians' actions. The council convened immediately, their faces grim as they faced the fallout. Zilra, who had always prided herself on her objectivity, found herself questioning everything she believed in. "What have we done?" she asked aloud, staring at the reports flooding in from across the galaxy. Daniel and Nira watched the chaos unfold from a safe distance. "It's working," Nira said, her voice filled with awe. "People are listening." "But it's not over yet," Daniel reminded her. "The council won't give up without a fight." Sure enough, the council issued a statement, denying responsibility for Earth's destruction and accusing Daniel of spreading misinformation. But their words rang hollow, especially when independent investigators confirmed the authenticity of the leaked files. Protests erupted on several planets, demanding accountability from the Krillians. Back at the facility, Daniel trained tirelessly, pushing his enhanced abilities to their limits. He practiced combat techniques, honed his reflexes, and tested his endurance. Each session left him exhausted but stronger, both physically and mentally. He knew the coming days would be dangerous and he needed to be prepared. Nira joined him occasionally, watching as he pushed himself harder than ever before. "You're different," she observed one day. "Stronger. Faster. What did they do to you during the revival process?" "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "But I'm starting to think it's more than just genetic enhancements. There's something else, something I can't explain." Nira studied him closely, concern etched on her face. "Be careful, Daniel. Whatever it is, it could be unpredictable." "I'll manage," he said confidently. "Besides, I don't have much of a choice." As the days passed, Daniel noticed changes beyond his physical abilities. His dreams became vivid, almost lifelike, filled with images of Earth's past. He saw cities rising from the ashes, people rebuilding after disasters, civilizations flourishing against all odds. These visions fueled his determination, reminding him of humanity's resilience. Meanwhile, the council grew desperate. They sent enforcers to track down Daniel and silence him, but he evaded them easily, using his heightened senses to stay one step ahead. With Nira's help, he continued rallying support from sympathetic Krillians and other species outraged by the council's actions. One night, as they prepared for the next phase of their plan, Nira turned to Daniel. "Do you think we can really win this?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "We have to," Daniel replied. "Not just for humanity, but for everyone who's suffered because of the council's decisions. If we don't stand up now, nothing will change." Nira nodded, resolve hardening in her eyes. "Then let's finish this." Together, they set their sights on the council itself. The time for hiding was over. It was time to confront the ones responsible for Earth's destruction and ensure they never harmed another civilization again. The air in the Krillian council chamber was thick with tension. The room itself was vast, its walls lined with glowing panels that displayed streams of data and images from across the galaxy. At the center sat the council members, their shimmering scales duller than usual, a sign of stress and unease. Around them, enforcers stood guard, their weapons ready, as if expecting trouble at any moment. The broadcast had shaken the foundation of their authority, and now they were scrambling to regain control. Daniel and Nira watched from a hidden observation deck above the chamber. They had sneaked into the facility under cover of darkness, using secret passages Nira knew well. From their vantage point, they could see everything: the council's frantic discussions, the guards' nervous glances, and the constant flow of incoming reports from outraged systems. It was clear the Krillians' carefully constructed image of benevolence was crumbling. "We need to act now," Daniel whispered, his voice low but firm. "While they're distracted." Nira nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. "Once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back." "I know," Daniel said, "but this is our chance. If we don't take it, they'll find a way to bury the truth again." With a deep breath, Nira activated a small device she had brought with her. It emitted a soft hum, disrupting the security systems in the chamber below. Alarms blared, red lights flashing as confusion spread among the council members and their guards. Taking advantage of the chaos, Daniel and Nira slipped out of their hiding spot and descended into the chamber. The moment they stepped inside, all eyes turned to them. Zilra, the lead scientist who had revived Daniel, rose from her seat, her expression a mix of shock and anger. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded, her voice sharp. "You know exactly what this means," Daniel replied, stepping forward. His presence commanded attention, his enhanced strength and confidence making him seem larger than life. "Your crimes have been exposed. The galaxy knows what you've done." Murmurs erupted among the council members, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats while others glared at Daniel with undisguised hostility. One of them, an older Krillian with deep green scales, leaned forward. "You think exposing us will change anything? Do you have any idea what maintaining balance requires? Sacrifices must be made." "Sacrifices?" Daniel shot back, his voice rising. "You didn't make sacrifices. You committed genocide. You erased Earth because you were afraid of us, afraid of what we might become. And look where fear got you, the elder snapped. Now you stand here stronger than ever, proving our concerns were valid. Before Daniel could respond, Nira stepped forward, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. Fear doesn't justify murder, she said. If we truly believe in balance, then we should work together, not destroy those who challenge us. Her words struck a chord with some of the younger council members, who exchanged uneasy glances. But the elders remained unmoved, their resolve hardened by centuries of tradition. Enough of this, Zilra said coldly, gesturing to the enforcers. Take them into custody, immediately. The guards moved toward Daniel and Nira, weapons raised, but Daniel was ready. With lightning-fast reflexes, he dodged the first enforcer's grasp, grabbing the weapon from his hand and disabling it with a single twist. The other guards hesitated, unsure how to handle someone so much stronger and faster than they were. Stay back, Daniel warned, his tone leaving no room for argument. This isn't about violence, it's about justice. But if you force my hand, I won't hesitate to defend myself. For a brief moment, the room fell silent. Then one of the guards lowered his weapon, shaking his head. He's right, the guard said. We can't keep covering up their mistakes, not anymore. Others began to follow suit, their loyalty to the council wavering. The elders shouted orders, trying to regain control, but their voices were drowned out by the growing dissent. Even some of the council members stood up, siding with Daniel and Nira. Zilra looked around, realizing she was losing support. Her usually calm demeanor cracked, revealing desperation beneath. Do you understand what you're doing? She asked, her voice trembling. You're tearing apart everything we've built. No, Daniel said, stepping closer. We're fixing it. Your methods were wrong, Zilra. You thought controlling the galaxy would bring peace, but all it did was create fear and resentment. It's time for a new way. The chamber erupted into shouts and arguments, the council divided like never before. In the midst of the chaos, Nira activated another device, this one projecting holographic images of Earth's destruction onto the walls. The visuals were stark and undeniable, cities reduced to rubble, ecosystems wiped clean, billions of lives erased. The sight silenced even the most stubborn defenders of the council. This is what your decisions led to, Nira said softly, her voice carrying through the quiet room. Not balance, not peace, destruction. One by one, the council members sank back into their seats, unable to deny the evidence before them. Zilra stared at the images, her face pale, her scales losing their shine. For the first time, doubt clouded her eyes. Daniel took a step forward, addressing the entire chamber. I'm not here to destroy you, he said. I'm here to give humanity, and every other species, a future, a real one. One where we decide our own fate instead of living under your shadow. His words resonated deeply, sparking hope among those gathered. Even some of the enforcers lowered their weapons completely, signaling their willingness to listen. As the initial shock wore off, the council called for a temporary truce. They agreed to negotiate terms, promising reforms and reparations for the damage they had caused. While many were skeptical of their sincerity, Daniel saw it as a starting point. He wasn't naive enough to believe change would come overnight, but it was progress nonetheless. Later that night, Daniel and Nira stood outside the facility, gazing up at the stars. The moon's surface was quiet, the distant glow of the gas giant casting a soft light over everything. Do you think they'll actually keep their promises? Nira asked, breaking the silence. I don't know, Daniel admitted, but we've planted the seeds of change. That's more than anyone expected when I woke up. Nira smiled faintly, her scales shimmering again. You've come a long way since then. So have you, Daniel said, turning to look at her. Without your help, none of this would have been possible. They stood there for a while longer, reflecting on everything they had accomplished, and everything still left to do. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but Daniel felt a renewed sense of purpose. Humanity's story wasn't over yet, and with allies like Nira by his side, he believed they could build a brighter future, not just for humans, but for everyone in the galaxy. But even as hope filled his heart, Daniel couldn't ignore the lingering questions in his mind. What had the revival process truly awakened within him? And how far would he have to go to ensure humanity's survival? Only time would tell. The days following the Council's agreement were filled with uncertainty. The Krillians had promised reforms, vowing to dismantle their oppressive systems and assist in rebuilding Earth's legacy. But promises were easy to make, and harder to keep. Daniel knew better than to trust them completely. He kept his guard up, watching closely as the Council began implementing changes. Nira stayed by his side, her loyalty unwavering. Together, they worked to ensure the Krillians followed through on their commitments. They traveled across the galaxy, meeting with leaders of other species who had been affected by the Council's actions. Many were hesitant at first, unsure whether humanity could be trusted after so many years of absence. But Daniel's determination and Nira's sincerity slowly won them over. "We're not asking for power," Daniel explained during one such meeting. "We're asking for a chance to rebuild what was lost and contribute to the galaxy's future." His words resonated with those who had suffered under the Krillians' rule. Slowly but surely, alliances began to form. Humanity's name, once forgotten, started to re-emerge in conversations about peace and cooperation. Despite these victories, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. His body continued to change, his strength and senses growing stronger with each passing day. At times he felt like he was losing control, his mind flooded with strange visions and emotions. The dreams of Earth became more vivid, almost overwhelming. He saw himself standing amidst ruins, surrounded by people who looked to him for guidance. It was as if his subconscious was preparing him for something. But what? One evening, as he sat alone in a quiet corner of the facility, Nira approached him. Her expression was serious, her scales shimmering faintly in the dim light. "Daniel," she said softly, "there's something I need to tell you." He looked up, sensing the gravity in her tone. "What is it?" "I've been studying your genetic enhancements," she began, hesitating before continuing. "They're evolving, faster than anyone anticipated. The revival process didn't just reactivate what was already there, it triggered something new, something unpredictable." Daniel frowned, his heart sinking. "What does that mean?" "It means you're becoming something more than human," Nira admitted. "Your DNA is rewriting itself, adapting in ways we don't fully understand. It's possible you might outlive everyone here, maybe even surpass us entirely." The weight of her words hit him hard. For so long he had embraced his newfound abilities, using them to fight for justice. But now, faced with the possibility of becoming something beyond comprehension, he felt uneasy. What would happen if he lost touch with his humanity? Would he still be the same person? "Nira," he said slowly, "is there any way to stop it?" She shook her head. "I don't think so. Whatever this is, it's part of you now. All we can do is try to understand it and help you manage it." Daniel nodded, though doubt lingered in his mind. He didn't want to lose himself, especially not when there was still so much work to be done. As the weeks passed, tensions within the Krillian Council grew. Some members genuinely supported the reforms, working tirelessly to undo the damage they had caused. Others, however, resisted change, plotting behind closed doors to regain their former power. Rumors spread of secret meetings and hidden agendas, fueling suspicion among the reformists. Daniel and Nira decided to investigate. Using information gathered from sympathetic Krillians, they uncovered evidence of a faction planning to sabotage the reforms. Their goal was clear: to discredit Daniel and restore the Council's authoritarian rule. "This can't happen," Daniel said firmly, reviewing the data with Nira. "If they succeed, everything we fought for will be undone." "We need proof," Nira replied. "Something undeniable that will expose them to the galaxy." Together they devised a plan. Under the cover of darkness, They infiltrated the Council's archives, searching for documents that would confirm the conspiracy. The task was dangerous. Guards patrolled the halls and security measures were tighter than ever. But Daniel's heightened abilities gave them an edge, allowing them to move swiftly and silently. Inside the archive chamber, they found what they were looking for: detailed plans outlining the faction schemes, including lists of allies and resources. As Nira copied the files onto a portable device, Daniel kept watch, his senses alert for any sign of trouble. Suddenly, the door slid open, revealing a group of enforcers led by Zilra herself. Her expression was grim, her scales dull with frustration. "I should have known you'd come here," she said, stepping forward. "You're too late," Daniel replied, holding his ground. "The truth is already out." Zilra hesitated, glancing at the device in Nira's hands. Then, to their surprise, she lowered her weapon. "You're right," she admitted. "It's over. The Council has failed, and it's time for a new beginning." Her words shocked both Daniel and Nira. They had expected resistance, not surrender. But as Zilra explained, she had seen the error of her ways. The exposure of the Council's crimes had forced her to confront the consequences of her actions. She wanted to help rebuild, not as a ruler but as a guide. With Zilra's assistance, Daniel and Nira broadcast the evidence of the conspiracy to the galaxy. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Systems that had once feared the Krillians now rallied behind humanity, seeing Daniel as a symbol of hope and resilience. The Council dissolved, replaced by a coalition of species committed to equality and cooperation. In the aftermath, Daniel found himself at a crossroads. His mission had been accomplished. The Krillians' grip on the galaxy was broken, and humanity had reclaimed its place among the stars. But the changes within him continued, his powers growing stronger with each passing day. He knew he couldn't stay forever, not without risking harm to those around him. One night, as he stood outside the facility with Nira, he made his decision. "I need to leave," he said quietly. "For everyone's sake." Nira looked at him, sadness in her eyes. "Where will you go?" "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "But I'll keep exploring, keep learning. Maybe someday, when I understand what I've become, I'll return." Tears welled up in Nira's eyes, but she nodded. "Just promise me one thing." "What's that?" "Never forget where you came from," I said. "And never stop fighting for what's right." Daniel smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I won't. Thank you, Nira, for everything." With that, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the vastness of space. His journey was far from over, but he carried with him the hope of a new future, not just for humanity but for all life in the galaxy. And though he traveled alone, he knew he would always have allies watching from afar, ready to join him when the time came. As the stars stretched endlessly before him, Daniel felt a sense of peace. The road ahead was uncertain, but he was ready. Whatever challenges lay in wait, he would face them head-on, guided by the lessons of his past and the promise of a brighter tomorrow.